Imagine a story you thought you knew inside out, a foundational narrative. Then discovering there's another deeper layer you never knew existed. What if the story of Adam and Eve didn't end with their expulsion from Eden, but instead began there, unfolding this tale of epic struggle, divine promises, and, well, relentless temptation? Today, we're embarking on a deep dive into an extraordinary text, a book that's fascinated scholars and, spiritual seekers for centuries, the first book of Adam and Eve. For many, I think this title itself is a bit of a mystery. Why haven't we heard of it? Well, it's a book many scholars classify as pseudepigraphy, a collection of historical, biblical works considered non-canonical, often due to their fictional classification. Yet, as our source material explains, these texts carry, and this is a quote, significant meaning and insight into events of that time. They offer alternative perspectives, filling narrative gaps that the canonical scriptures kind of leave open. It's like a true treasure map to humanity's early spiritual landscape.
And the mystery only deepens when you consider the origins of this particular version, which we're exploring today from a Project Gutenberg ebook. It's presented as this remarkably detailed account of Adam and Eve's lives, right from the moment of their expulsion until the tragic murder of Cain's brother Abel. This version is widely believed to have been transmitted orally for generations, like a living story whispered from elder to youth, before eventually being written down by unknown Egyptians, possibly centuries before Christ. What's truly fascinating, and it really speaks to its enduring influence, is that parts of this very narrative can be found echoed in the Jewish Talmud and the Islamic Quran.
Wow, really? In both?
Yes, exactly. This highlights its profound, albeit often overlooked, role in early human wisdom literature. It demonstrates how its ideas shaped collective consciousness long before, formal canonization debates. It truly makes you ponder the rich tapestry of ancient belief systems.
Absolutely. It's like finding a lost blueprint of humanity's earliest spiritual and physical struggles. A crucial chapter many of us never even knew existed. So our mission today is to truly unearth the intense drama, the profound theological insights, and frankly, the surprising details woven into this ancient narrative. We'll explore what makes this mystery of a non-canonical text so compelling, tracing its key characters and events, breaking down its subplots of temptation and divine intervention, and discussing why such stories persist and resonate so deeply across time. Prepare for not just one, but probably several aha moments, because this is definitely not the Garden of Eden story you grew up with. We're going beyond the familiar verses to uncover a more expansive, often harrowing, and ultimately hopeful version of humanity's beginnings. Okay, let's jump right into the heart of it. Our story in the first book is Adam and Eve begins not with the lingering bliss of paradise, but with an immediate, shattering terror. Adam and Eve don't just leave the garden with a sigh. They collapse in absolute fear at its gate. Imagine the profound disorientation. They see a broad earth spread before them, covered with stones large and small and with sand. The sheer desolation, the unfamiliarity, the raw, unkempt nature of this new world hits them with such force that the text says they were as dead from the shock.
Right, and that phrase, as dead, it isn't just a metaphor for extreme fright, is it? It implies a complete, almost biological system shutdown, like a temporary loss of life force or consciousness so profound they were functionally equivalent to corpses.
Yeah, it paints a picture of shock so overwhelming it almost kills them, which is a far starker image than simply being scared. It's a brutal awakening to a new, hostile reality.
And what's truly profound here is the immediate and drastic physical and spiritual change that accompanied their expulsion. The text explicitly states that while in the garden they were filled with the grace of a bright nature, and crucially, their hearts were not turned toward earthly things. This bright nature wasn't just a feeling, it was a higher sensory perception, allowing them to see angels, perceive divine realities, and even grasp things far away, beyond their immediate physical vicinity. It was almost like having an additional spiritual set of senses.
So not just seeing better, but perceiving differently on a whole other level.
Exactly. But after their transgression, this luminous essence, this enhanced perception, is abruptly withdrawn. They are left with mere flesh eyes, brutish, limited, and capable of seeing only near at hand. This isn't just a metaphor for lost innocence. It's presented as a fundamental physiological alteration of their very being, a complete downgrade of their perceptual hardware, if you will.
A downgrade, wow.
Their entire mode of experiencing reality shifted instantly, reducing their awareness to the purely physical. It's a concept far more visceral than a simple spiritual fall. It essentially grounds them in a new, limited reality, a world they can no longer perceive with clarity or divine insight.
And what a devastating shift it was. God, in his command, directs them to live in the cave of treasures, located just below the garden. Adam, in chapter 4, explicitly labels it our prison in this world and a place of punishment. He draws a stark, painful contrast between the cave's narrowness and gloom and the boundless space and radiant light of Eden. This is no idyllic retreat, no cozy new home. It's a dark, confined existence that embodies their profound loss.
Absolutely. For someone accustomed to infinite expanse and eternal daylight, being relegated to a literal, cramped, dark cave would be, well, psychological torture, deepening their sense of being utterly cut off from everything they knew and cherished.
And that name, Cave of Treasures, feels so ironic at first given Adam's despair.
It does initially, yes.
Yeah.
But as we'll see, it actually becomes prophetic later on.
Yeah.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it reveals a multifaceted understanding of God's character. He is certainly just, but also profoundly merciful, even in meting out consequences. While he places them on the western border of the garden, he explicitly avoids placing them on the north, where a crystal sea of pure water could metaphorically cleanse them from their sins.
Offering an immediate, kind of undeserved absolution.
Precisely. Nor does he place them on the south, where the delicious smell of the trees from Eden might offer false consolation, allowing them to forget their actions without true repentance. This very specific geographical placement emphasizes the gravity of their transgression and the necessity of enduring their new, harsh reality without easy escape or premature comfort.
So it's a consequence designed not just for punishment, but for reflection.
Exactly. For deep repentance and a gradual understanding of their new condition, rather than immediate relief or a shortcut back to grace. It underscores that true healing often requires confronting the full weight of one's actions.
Then in chapter 5, we witness this incredibly emotional and poignant scene. Adam, just overwhelmed by his grief and the profound sense of abandonment, collapses from sheer sorrow. He's utterly convinced he can no longer see God or heaven from the dark confines of the cave. It's a complete spiritual and emotional collapse. Eve, believing him dead, makes what the text calls a noble and emotional intercession, taking full blame herself. Her plea is heart-wrenching, emphasizing their unbreakable unity, "O Lord, I and he are one." She even goes so far as to beg God to take her soul too if Adam dies. It illustrates this profound codependency, a shared destiny, and a deep, desperate human bond forged in suffering. Her raw, desperate plea is a powerful testament to their shared plight and enduring love.
And this emotional outburst from Eve, taking full blame, raises an important question that the text directly addresses. What exactly was their transgression beyond just eating a forbidden piece of fruit? Guard's reprimand in chapter 6 is remarkably direct and sheds crucial light on the theological depth of their sin. He states that they transgressed of your own free will through your desire for divinity, greatness, and an exalted state such as I have.
So it wasn't just disobedience about food, it was aspiration.
Yeah.
Hubris.
Exactly. An aspiration to be like God, a fundamental act of hubris driven by a craving for forbidden knowledge and power. God even points out there were fruit trees in the garden better than that one, underscoring that the choice was not about need or hunger, but about a dangerous desire to usurp divine prerogative.
Right.
This reveals the core of their sin as a deeply spiritual ambition, not just a simple lapse in judgment. And this leads us directly to a more profound understanding of Satan's role in their fall. The text explicitly links Satan's own catastrophic fall from grace to his similar desire for Godhead, for which he was hurled down from heaven.
So his own backstory explains his motivation.
Perfectly. Driven by envy, a desire for revenge, and a deep-seated urge to see others share his degradation, he then made the forbidden tree appear pleasant to Adam and Eve. His purpose wasn't just temptation, it was a calculated act of sabotage, intended to replicate his own downfall. This establishes Satan not merely as a mischievous tempter, but as a formidable, bitter enemy operating from a place of profound resentment, actively seeking to inflict his own misery on God's newest creations. He is a tragic figure himself, in a way, eternally bound to his own misguided ambition.
Okay, now here's where the narrative takes a truly fascinating turn, offering a beacon of hope amidst their despair. Immediately after their fall, God delivers a profound prophecy, a glimpse into a future redemption. I shall send the word that created you when the 5.5 days are fulfilled. Adam, consumed by his immediate suffering and operating within a very human understanding of time, understandably misinterprets this. He thinks it literally means 5.5 days until the end of the world, a swift release from his misery.
Which makes sense from his perspective.
Absolutely. But God, with divine patience, clarifies. These were 5,500 years, and how one would then come and save him and his descendants. This is a monumental shift in perspective, moving from literal days to millennia, instantly broadening Adam's understanding of divine time and intervention.
And this prophecy is, really without exaggeration, one of the earliest and most vivid prefigurements of Christ's coming woven into any ancient text, especially one predating canonical gospels by centuries. It's deeply embedded in humanity's initial suffering, almost like a promise given simultaneously with the curse. Chapter 14 expands on this, making the connection even more explicit and emotionally charged. God states, "When I shall come down from heaven and shall become flesh of your descendants and take on myself the infirmity from which you suffer, then the darkness that covered you in this cave shall cover me in the grave."
That's incredibly specific.
It is. What makes this prophecy uniquely impactful compared to, say, the proto-evangelium in Genesis is its explicit detail. It doesn't just hint. It lays out a precise timeline and personal suffering for the Redeemer. It paints a picture of divine empathy we rarely see so clearly expressed this early in human-divine interaction within ancient texts. It tells us that from the moment of their fall, humanity was not just cursed, but immediately given a concrete long-term promise of a solution involving God's own sacrifice. That's a profound theological statement that frames their suffering within a larger redemptive narrative, giving it purpose and ultimate hope.
Imagine for a moment living in a world of perpetual light, where the sun never sets, where the concept of darkness simply doesn't exist. That was their reality in the Garden of Eden.
That's what the text implies, yes, a constant bright light.
But in the Cave of Treasures, a new, terrifying phenomenon engulfs them. Darkness surrounded us all around, so absolute they couldn't even see each other. Adam cries out with his primal, visceral fear, "Oh God, why has light departed from us and darkness covered us?" It's a fundamental shift in their perception of existence that we, who are born into the rhythm of day and night, can hardly conceive of. This wasn't just a physical deprivation, it was a psychological assault, a tangible representation of their spiritual fall.
And God's explanation in chapter 13 is crucial, as it unveils a nuanced understanding of cosmic order and divine intention. He reveals that darkness first came over Satan when he transgressed and fell from heaven, an eternal shadow of his rebellion. Adam's bright light, his inherent radiance, was indeed taken, but in an act of profound mercy, God didn't condemn him to Satan's eternal darkness. Instead, he gave him a body of flesh, over which I spread the skin, in order that it may bear cold and heat.
Ah, so the skin itself is a provision.
Exactly. And the creation of night and day is then presented not solely as a punishment, but as a practical, compassionate provision for Adam and his descendants. It establishes a necessary rhythm for them to work and toil, and then rest. This contrasts sharply with Satan's unrelenting darkness and further highlights God's ongoing compassion and concern for Adam's well-being, even in his fallen state. So night isn't just a consequence of sin, it's a built-in mechanism for human recovery, survival, and the management of their new, vulnerable physiology. It transforms a perceived curse into a necessary aspect of their new earthly existence.
The narrative takes a truly dark turn when it revisits the serpent. Chapter 7 describes his horrific transformation from what was once the most exalted of all beasts and fairest in the garden, to something slippery, meanest, and ugliest, now forced to eat dust. What a powerful, visceral image of degradation, directly linking its physical form to its treacherous act of deception.
It's a complete physical embodiment of evil and its consequences. And here's where the drama intensifies even further, highlighting the persistent, insidious threat of evil. Satan, still in serpent form, makes a direct, murderous attempt on Adam and Eve, specifically targeting Eve. Adam, disarmed and helpless, tries to intervene but has no weapon to defend them. In a moment of intense divine intervention, God sends an angel who powerfully throws the serpent away.
But it doesn't end there.
No. In an astonishing second curse, God strikes the serpent mute for its continued wickedness and destructive intent. This is a critical detail that fills a gap in many canonical accounts. It explains the serpent's subsequent inability to speak or overtly tempt humanity.
So that's why the serpent doesn't talk later.
This text suggests so. It's then carried by a divine wind and thrown on the seashore where it landed in India. And it's fascinating that the text specifies India. In ancient cosmologies, India often represented the farthest eastern reach of the known world, a place of mystery and ultimate exile.
Pushing it to the absolute edge of the world.
Geographically and symbolically, yes. Reinforcing the idea of a complete banishment and segregation from humanity's immediate sphere, a visible sign of God's direct, protective hand.
The sheer crushing weight of their new reality, the isolation, the relentless suffering. It drives Adam and Eve to utter despair, not just once, but twice, to the point of attempting to end their lives. First, in chapter 9, they throw themselves into the water that watered the garden near the tree of life, wishing to put an end to themselves. They yearn for oblivion rather than enduring their agony.
Such a desperate act.
Then, with terrifying resolve, in chapter 21, Adam hurls himself from a mountain, followed by Eve, both described as being close to death. This isn't a gentle lament. It's raw, desperate, self-destructive grief, a profound longing for escape from an existence they perceive as unbearable. It makes their plight incredibly relatable, despite its ancient setting.
And yet, despite their repeated acts of profound despair and defiance actions that could be seen as an ultimate rejection of God's will, God repeatedly intervenes. He sends angels and his divine word to miraculously raise them from their near-death states. This highlights God's merciful and gracious nature, a persistent love that overrides even their most desperate self-destructive impulses. It also underscores that Adam's suicidal actions, however intense, have no effect against my rule, neither will it alter the covenant of the 5,500 years.
So their suffering doesn't derail the plan.
Not at all. Their intense suffering is not an arbitrary end. It is part of a larger, unshakable divine plan for salvation, a path to redemption that God, in his enduring mercy, will not allow them to abandon. This unwavering commitment to his covenant, despite human weakness and despair, is a central, reassuring theme, affirming that even in humanity's darkest moments, a path to redemption remains open.
After experiencing the depths of suicidal despair, a new spiritual action emerges. Adam and Eve build what the text explicitly calls the first altar ever built. And in a truly powerful and desperate act, they offer their own blood, mingled with dust, as a plea for forgiveness.
Right, this isn't an animal sacrifice yet, which would come much later.
No, it's a profound, primal, self-sacrificial gesture. A raw, heartfelt cry for mercy, born directly from their suffering. It signifies a crucial step in their understanding of repentance and seeking atonement.
And God accepts their heartfelt offering, sending divine fire to consume it, a clear sign of his favor and acceptance. What's even more significant and deeply embedded with future theological meaning is the direct prophecy God then provides to Adam, chapter 24. He draws a profound parallel. As you have shed your blood, so will I shed my own blood when I become flesh of your descendants. And as you died, O Adam, so also will I die.
Wow.
And as you built an altar, so also will I make for you an altar of the earth. And as you sued for forgiveness through that blood, so also will I make my blood forgiveness of sins.
That's an incredibly rich and astonishing detail, establishing this direct, explicit, and early connection between Adam's primal desperate act and Christ's future redemptive sacrifice.
It truly frames human suffering and longing within a grander narrative of divine intervention and ultimate atonement. This foreshadowing is really a cornerstone of the text's enduring power.
Following this act of devotion, God provides three tangible comforts, seemingly mundane but deeply symbolic. Golden rods, described as coming from the Indian Sea, sweet-smelling incense from the eastern garden, and myrrh from the western border. Adam, still grappling with his loss and grief, initially interprets these as personal tokens of his lost kingdom, the radiant light of Eden, and the sorrow that now defines his existence. They are, to him, bittersweet reminders of what he had forfeited.
Understandably so, but God clarifies their profound symbolic meaning, elevating them far beyond mere comforting objects or personal mementos. He reveals their ultimate purpose. Kings shall bring me when in the flesh, gold, incense, and myrrh.
The gifts of the Magi.
Exactly. Gold as a token of my kingdom, incense as a token of my divinity, and myrrh as a token of my suffering and of my death. This is another astonishingly direct prophecy, explicitly connecting these early comforts to the famous gifts of the Magi to the infant Christ, centuries, even millennia later. The strategic placement of these items within the Cave of Treasures, gold to shed a metaphorical light, incense for a sweet savor of prayer, and myrrh for comfort in sorrow, transforms the cave itself.
From a prison to a sanctuary.
Precisely. From a perceived prison, it becomes a potent sanctuary of hope, a place of proto-worship imbued with future promise, turning Adam's despair into a signpost for redemption. It's a fantastic example of the layered meaning and interconnectedness within this ancient narrative.
Despite these divine reassurances, Satan remains utterly relentless, his malevolence knowing no bounds. He attempts a sophisticated deception, transforming his hosts into flashing fire and great light, singing praises, trying to lure Adam and Eve out of the relative safety of the cave. He manipulates their longing for light and divine presence, making them believe he is a heavenly angel. But Adam, having learned from his costly experience, shows a nascent wisdom in developing discernment.
He's learning, isn't he?
He really is. He questions why these supposed divine beings won't simply enter the cave if they are truly from God. That's a clever bit of critical thinking, showing he's truly learning to distinguish between genuine divine presence and cunning illusion.
And an angel soon arrives, powerfully unmasking Satan's deceit. The angel reveals his insidious purpose. He has come to you in the likeness of an angel of light, in order that when you worshipped him, he might enslave you. The angel then dramatically stripped him of the pretense he had assumed, and for Adam and Eve, revealed his hideous form, demonstrating his inherent weakness and his inability to act openly without God's explicit permission.
They see his true face.
Exactly. This provides the listener with a direct, visceral visualization of Satan's true, repulsive nature, reinforcing the idea that his power relies almost entirely on deception and illusion. He can't confront them directly or with true authority. He must trick them, relying on their spiritual naivety. This moment marks a significant turning point in Adam and Eve's journey of discernment.
Satan's wickedness, as we see, extends far beyond mere deception. In chapter 43, he attempts an act of pure malice. Arson. He tries to burn the very cave of treasures where Adam and Eve have found a semblance of peace and hope, aiming to destroy their sanctuary and perhaps them along with it.
Just pure destruction.
Then, with an almost cartoonish villainy, in chapter 48, he gathers his demonic hosts and throws a huge rock at the sleeping Adam and Eve, intending to crush them outright. The sheer, unadulterated malice is almost unfathomable, revealing the depth of his hatred for humanity.
But God, in his unwavering protection, thwarts Satan's destructive intent, transforming an act of malice into a powerful symbol of future redemption. The immense, hurled rock, instead of crushing them, is commanded by God to become a dome over them, miraculously protecting them.
Like a protective shell.
Yes. And this seemingly simple act of divine intervention leads directly to the third major prophecy in chapter 59, a remarkable revelation. God tells Adam that this event explicitly foreshadows Christ's burial. Satan will raise the people of the Jews to put me to death, and they will lay me in a rock and seal a large stone over me.
Just like the rock became a dome.
Exactly. And I shall remain within that rock 3 days and 3 nights. But on the third day I shall rise again, and it shall be salvation to you, O Adam, and to your descendants, to believe in me. This prophecy explicitly links their immediate hardship and divine protection from Satan's rock to the future resurrection of Christ, imbuing their present suffering with profound spiritual significance and connecting their daily struggles to the ultimate act of salvation. It's another compelling example of how this mysterious text addresses core theological questions with astonishing clarity.
After the terror of Satan's attacks, a more primal hardship returns: hunger and thirst. Adam and Eve endure prolonged fasting, their bodies parched and lean. Adam eloquently recalls their garden existence: no hunger, no thirst, no suffering, where sustenance was effortless, and appeals desperately for food from the garden. God, in his compassion, provides figs, reminding them gently that their transformed animal body could not survive on earth without earthly food. This is a stark moment, the definitive beginning of a truly earthly, physical existence, where survival now requires active effort and dependence on the very soil they were cast upon.
And this transition from spiritual sustenance to earthly food brings with it a profoundly significant physiological development, a detail often overlooked but crucial to understanding humanity's new state. In chapter LXD5, after eating the figs, they actually become sick from the food.
Really? Sick?
Yes, because their bodies, accustomed to a purely spiritual diet in Eden, weren't designed to process it. They experience intense bodily pain, leading Adam to lament that their innards will come out, a visceral fear of their new fragile physicality. In response, God then fitted them for eating food at once, miraculously giving them digestive organs. This marks a final, irreversible break from their garden nature, a complete biological re-engineering.
Wow, so he literally upgrades their bodies for Earth.
Or perhaps downgrades, depending on your perspective. It confirms that all hope of returning to the garden was now lost, because all flesh that requires food and drink for its existence cannot be in the garden. This isn't just a quirky detail, it's the text's profound explanation for the physicality of human existence, the absolute irreversible break from a purely spiritual, effortless being. It grounds humanity in a new biological reality, making survival an active, physical struggle and forever closing the door on a physical return to Eden.
In this new, harsher reality, Adam also asks for the water of life, a clear longing for not just physical hydration, but for their lost spiritual nourishment and connection to the divine.
A deeper thirst.
Exactly. God promises it, but not immediately, outlining a future path to this ultimate restoration. It cannot be this day, but on the day that I shall descend into hell. Then will I in mercy save your soul and the souls of the righteous, to give them rest in my garden. It's a promise of salvation, not just for them, but for all righteous souls, hinting at a broader plan of redemption.
And once again, the prophecy connects directly and powerfully to Christ, deepening the meaning of this water of life even further. God explicitly states, "In regards to the water of life you seek, it will not be granted you this day, but on the day that I shall shed my blood on your head in the land of Golgotha."
On your head. That's an interesting phrase.
Yes, it's understood as an elevated position, a clear and undeniable reference to the crucifixion, the ultimate shedding of blood. "For my blood shall be the water of life to you at that time, and not to just you alone, but to all your descendants who shall believe in me." The symbolic transformation from physical water to the spiritual blood of Christ is a striking theological link, turning a simple request for sustenance into a promise of ultimate universal redemption through sacrifice. This is an incredible piece of foreshadowing, demonstrating how the themes of suffering and salvation are intricately woven into the fabric of this ancient narrative from its very beginning.
With their physical bodies now adapted to earthly life and the promise of future redemption firmly established, the narrative turns to the continuation of humanity. Yet, even in this sacred act, Satan, ever the manipulator, attempts to interfere. He tries to trick Adam into marrying Eve without God's permission, even appearing as beautiful maidens to inflame Adam's animal desires, twisting a natural urge into an opportunity for sin.
Always looking for an opening.
Always. But Adam, having learned profoundly from his past encounters and showing newfound caution, resists. He prays for God's guidance, demonstrating his growing wisdom and reliance on divine direction rather than his own impulses.
Which is a huge step for him. God approves Adam's caution, validating his developing discernment, and sends angels to instruct them in the proper way. Adam, echoing the divine gifts he received in the Cave of Treasures, then gives Eve gold as a wedding gift and incense and myrrh as a present.
Using those same symbolic gifts again.
Yes, those symbols of kingship, divinity, and suffering now imbued with the sanctity of their union. They undertake a significant 40-day fast before having sexual intercourse, an act explicitly described as pure and undefiled, intended to replenish the face of the earth. This demonstrates God's explicit plan for humanity's continuation, even outside Eden, and emphasizes the sacredness of marriage and procreation within his divine order. It's a deliberate sanctification of what might otherwise have been a purely biological act, elevating it to a spiritual level, establishing a pattern for future generations.
Then in chapter 66, the text details Adam's first day's work. After being guided by God, he finds wheat in a land of dark soil, and with divine wisdom, learns to make bread. This isn't just a mundane detail. It's a foundational moment for all of humanity, the birth of agriculture and the establishment of sustenance through toil.
Right, the beginning of farming.
It's a direct, practical consequence of the fall. Humanity must now labor to eat, but it's also presented as a divine provision for survival, ensuring that even in their cursed state, humanity has the means to live and grow. And so, the human family begins to grow. Eve gives birth to Cain and his twin sister, Lulua. The narrative carefully explains the significance of their names, revealing much about their innate characters. Cain, it says, means hater, because he hated his sister in their mother's womb, suggesting a deep-seated negative disposition from birth.
Wow, from the womb itself.
That's what it says. Lulua, by contrast, means beautiful. Later, Abel and his sister Aklia are born. The narrative then meticulously outlines the rituals for offering sacrifices for each child, reinforcing the establishment of worship and the continued effort to seek God's favor and blessing through prescribed acts of devotion. It marks a clear spiritual practice for the nascent family. Here's where the human tragedy, born of sin and temptation, truly begins to unfold within this first family. Cain is explicitly described as hard-hearted and prone to ruling over Abel, exerting a dominant and perhaps oppressive influence.
The older brother dynamic, but intensified.
Very much so. Abel, by stark contrast, is portrayed as meek, obedient, and deeply devoted to making offerings to God. He even experiences a profound spiritual encounter. He sees an angel who warns him against the figure that cursed you to death, clearly identifying Satan as the ultimate source of evil and the orchestrator of their suffering. This insight into Abel's character and his divine warning deepens the narrative's understanding of the spiritual forces at play.
And Satan, ever the opportunist and master manipulator, capitalizes precisely on Cain's deep-seated resentment and perceived injustices. He appears to Cain at night, whispering insidious lies, fueling his envy. He suggests that Adam and Eve unfairly favor Abel, intending to marry Abel to the beautiful Lulua, while Cain would be left with the ugly Aklia. This is a chilling example of direct demonic instigation, exploiting Cain's insecurities, and a distorted sense of entitlement.
Playing on jealousy and desire.
Exactly. Satan explicitly advises Cain, with cold precision, kill your brother. That way your sister will be left for you and his sister will be cast away. This is a deeply psychological manipulation, focusing on envy, lust, and a warped vision of justice, leading directly to the most heinous of sins, fratricide. It lays bare the devil's cunning strategy to sow discord and destruction within the very first human family.
Adam, sensing the growing tension and attempting to guide his sons toward righteousness, instructs Cain and Abel to make offerings to God. The divine response is clear. God accepts Abel's good offering because of his good heart and pure body, sending divine fire to consume it, a clear sign of acceptance.
A visible sign.
Yes. But Cain's offering, made with a proud heart full of guile and fraud, is pointedly rejected. Cain, enraged and his pride wounded, blasphemes God, and in a fit of uncontrollable jealousy lures Abel into a lonely place, setting the stage for the first murder.
The description of the murder itself is brutal and graphically detailed, underscoring the horrific nature of the act. Cain first beats Abel with a staff, then brutally finishes him with a large stone, resulting in his brains oozing out. This isn't a sanitized account, it's raw, visceral violence.
Truly horrific.
What's even more profound is the reaction of creation itself. The earth trembled as it drank his blood, and in a powerful symbolic gesture would not receive him, repeatedly throwing Abel's body back up.
The earth itself rejected the act.
That's the symbolism. It signifies the profound disruption and unnaturalness of the act, an affront to the natural order and creation itself. God, of course, confronts Cain directly, asking the fateful question, "Where is Abel your brother?" To which Cain famously replies with defiance, "Am I my brother's keeper?" A line that has echoed through human history as the ultimate evasion of responsibility. In the aftermath, God curses Cain and the very ground that drank Abel's blood, declaring that Cain will always be trembling and shaking, and this will be a mark on you so that whoever finds you will kill you. This mark, however, is not just a brand of punishment, but also a divine protection.
Protection, how so?
Because God, in his enduring mercy, clarifies that, "I shall put 7 punishments on anyone that kills Cain." The text then explains these 7 punishments are not immediate retributions, but rather the 7 generations during which God awaited Cain for the murder of his brother. This highlights a divine justice that, while stern and unwavering in its consequences, still allows for a prolonged period of potential repentance and reckoning, showcasing God's immense patience and long-suffering, even in the face of such profound wickedness.
But Cain didn't take that chance for repentance.
Tragically, as the broader narrative implies, he did not, sealing his grim fate. This detailed exploration of justice, mercy, and the long-term consequences of sin offers a deep insight into the earliest understanding of divine law.
Wow. This deep dive has truly shown us a version of Adam and Eve's story that is so much more dramatic, emotionally charged, and intricately detailed than the canonical account many of us grew up with. It's filled with explicit prophecies of Christ, intense psychological struggles, and a truly relentless, insidious Satan. But this raises a crucial question. Why does a text like this, labeled as fiction or pseudepigrapha by many scholars, continue to hold significant meaning and insight? What is the enduring mystery that makes this story persist, copied and revered for millennia, even when it isn't officially accepted by all traditions?
Well, I think at its core, the first book of Adam and Eve fills critical narrative gaps. It addresses that innate human curiosity about the missing years between Eden and the well-known stories of later patriarchs. It offers compelling explanations for fundamental questions that the canonical texts leave largely unanswered. The concrete origin of night and day, the necessity of food and water for our physical bodies, the development of human bodies to process that food, the ongoing struggle with temptation, and why suffering entered the world in such a profound, visceral way.
It answers the how and why of things we experience.
Exactly. It provides a rich, emotional narrative that powerfully resonates with the universal human experience of trial, loss, and the enduring search for hope. Its inclusion, even in fragments or parts, within the Jewish Talmud and the Islamic Quran underscores its pervasive influence on early religious thought and the why behind many commonly held beliefs, even if not officially canonized in all traditions. This persistent intrigue is a testament not just to its narrative power, but its ability to answer deep human questions.
And beyond the theological and historical questions, the text offers an extraordinary deep dive into the human psyche at its genesis. Adam and Eve's profound fear, their descent into utter despair, their desperate longing for their lost paradise, their capacity for both grievous sin and earnest repentance, their evolution from a bright nature to vulnerable animal flesh, It's a profound exploration of the human condition in its earliest, most raw, and most vulnerable form. It truly makes you empathize with their ordeal, seeing our own struggles mirrored in their primal experiences, doesn't it?
Indeed, it does. And this naturally encourages critical thinking about the fundamental nature of good and evil, the complexities of free will, and the nuances of divine justice. The continuous, often emotional dialogue between God and humanity, the explicit promises of salvation, and the vivid portrayal of Satan's relentless, cunning deception offer a powerful psychological framework for understanding temptation, resilience, and the long path to redemption. The profound shift from primal, paradisiacal existence to one defined by toil, the formation of family, and ultimately murder, serves as a powerful cultural narrative about the origins of our world and the inherent challenges within the human experience. It compels us to question our own exercise of free will and the moral choices we make daily.
So thinking about all this, what truly stands out to you from this narrative? Does it change your perception of the familiar biblical story, or perhaps make you reconsider what's truly factual versus what is profoundly meaningful in ancient texts?
Well, the first book of Adam and Eve definitely presents a truly compelling expansion of humanity's origin story, adding layers of drama, emotion, and theological depth. It portrays a God who is both immaculately just in his consequences and profoundly merciful in his provisions, a Satan who is a truly formidable and relentless deceiver, and an Adam and Eve who are deeply, heartbreakingly human in their flaws, fears, and nascent faith. For me, the most compelling aspects are those repeated, explicit prophecies of Christ's coming, his suffering, and his resurrection, interwoven into their earliest trials. These aren't vague hints, they're detailed prefigurements.
And they really stand out.
They do, and equally compelling is the dramatic detailing of how core aspects of our very human existence, like the rhythm of work and rest, the structure of family, and even the intricate process of digestion became our reality. It shows how that door to Eden was firmly closed, forcing humanity to adapt to a new, challenging world. It's an intricate tapestry of divine plan and human struggle, offering profound insights into the human condition.
So, what does this all mean for us today? If ancient wisdom, like the first book of Adam and Eve, found its way into diverse religious texts and continued to be copied and translated for millennia, even when not officially accepted, what does that tell us about the enduring human need for narratives that fill in the gaps, explain our struggles, and offer hope for salvation? Perhaps the true mystery of this book isn't its historical accuracy, but its undeniable power to deeply resonate with the human soul, providing answers to existential questions that canonical text left unexplored. It leaves us to ponder what other forgotten stories might still hold crucial keys to understanding ourselves, our shared spiritual heritage, and our enduring place in the cosmos. Thank you for diving deep with us today.